Section B of paper 2 is the changing economic world. So question 2, you get figure 4. You've got a map here showing HDI, which is combines a life expectancy, literacy rate, and GDP or income. It says using figure 4, compare HDI values in Africa and South America. Again, Africa is here, South America is over there, and you just have to make a statement. So HDI values in South America are generally higher than in Africa. Okay, that is, you have to compare. So you get 1 mark for that. Another one you can do is, because once you've compared, you can use some data. So for instance, you can say the vast majority of countries in South America have 0.7 of HDI value or more, whereas in Africa, most have a HDI of under 0.6, okay, with a few exceptions, obviously, like everywhere. North Africa doing better GNI wise, HDI wise, sorry. So question 2.2, one disadvantage of using a single measure of development such as income. It's a single measure might only consider income and nothing else. It can be misleading because it hides huge variations within countries. Think of Qatar, zero high GNI or GDP, but not everyone in Qatar will have the same rights. It doesn't take into account social aspects like birth rate, death rate, literacy rate. It can hide inequalities in sexuality, in gender, etc. Okay, so it's just monetary. It doesn't really look at people's quality of life. Study figure 5 for the next question. Explain how one of the indicated of development in figure 5. So you can use GNI, life expectancy, or adult literacy rate, shows a difference in quality of life between 3 countries. The kind of obvious one most people are likely to go for here is life expectancy. You can see Sierra Leone is 45, whereas in China is 75, and in Italy is 83. And just highlight it, for 4 marks, you have to say. Right, in this case, Sierra Leone life expectancy is 45 years old. Explain what that might suggest. It might suggest they'll be affected by diseases. Ebola outbreak happened in Sierra Leone a few years ago. They might have poor sanitation and healthcare. Therefore, they've got a higher mortality rate, infant mortality rate, lower stage of the DTM, etc. Whereas in Italy, you're going to have better quality of life. You're going to have better diets. You're going to have, often due to the fact they've got better income, if that makes sense, better healthcare system, and therefore more likely to look after its vulnerable because it can afford to. Okay, so that's 2A. If you look at my video on how to get full marks, you have to make a point, explain it, make another point, explain it. So in this case, you just pick 2 of the 3 countries. Okay, then you've got a picture here of Cambridge Science Park, which is a case study we learned about at Red and Green. It says using figure 6, measure the distance between the Cambridge Science Park and junction 14 of the M11. Junction 14 is here, the Science Park is over there. You've got a scale down here. You just need to use a ruler and tell me the distance, and the distance is 4.6, and the exam board allows anything between 4 and 5. Okay, so just bring your equipment to class to your exam. Using figure 6, explain the advantages of this location. The main advantage for Cambridge is that it is north of London. Okay, so first of all, it's a science park is located near one of the best universities in the world. It's connected to London via the M11. It's in between London and Cambridge. There's Stansted Airport. The map is shocking because Stansted is actually so close to Cambridge. But anyway, it's near the Stansted International Airport. So you've got highly skilled workers. You can export, import products really easily. You've got a huge market in London available. You've got more spaces to expand in Cambridge than in London. Land value is cheaper in Cambridge than it is in London. These are some of the numerous advantages of being located near Cambridge. Okay, again, in this case here, explain the advantages. I'd pick 2 advantages, and I'd explain them both. You get 4 marks. Okay, then give 2 reasons why there's been a growth in the number of science parks in the UK. We've got a list here. Because the UK is investing in tertiary, quaternary sectors. Okay, because UK's got a high reputation for universities. So all Russell Group universities, for example, tend to have a science park. Because we've got a growth in demand of high tech products such as mobile phones, etc. Just give 2 reasons. You don't necessarily have to explain them. Okay, then you've got a figure here about fair trade bananas. You've got a non-fair trade banana here, a fair trade banana here, and it says, using figure 7, compare the price, percentage of price received by fair trade banana compared to non-fair trade. You've got basically here, it says 7 compared to 14. Fair trade earns double. Okay, and calculate the increase in retail value. The increase is 234.4 million increase. Therefore, anything between 234 235 will be accepted. Okay. And then 2 more questions. Outline one way fair trade helps to deal with unequal development. It guarantees a basic price to a farmer so they can plan accordingly. It also allows them to meet the needs of the families, pay their mortgages, invest in healthcare infrastructure, etc. Okay, but it allows for better profit and guarantees a minimum price. Suggests one reason why fair trade schemes are not always successful. The main reason they're not always successful is because they can be quite expensive products. Therefore, customers might not want to buy them, and you might have lower sales. You have a more expensive product, less sales, and can be counterproductive in some ways. And then the final one, transnational corporations or TNCs only bring advantages to the host country. Do you agree with the statement? What you have to tick, yes or no. And then if you've seen the video again on how to plan a perfect answer, you need two piece paragraphs here. First piece paragraph, I'd focus on the host. Second piece paragraph, I'd focus on the source country, okay, or the home country. So in the case of the host country, at Red and Green, we learned about Shell Oil in Nigeria. So your host country is Nigeria. You'd say yes. Shell Oil benefited Nigeria because it brought some jobs and foreign direct investment. Specifically, I think it was 60,000 direct jobs, 250,000 indirect jobs. As a result, we explain how these jobs enable Nigeria to grow as an economy. Talk about the multiplier effect in this case. People who are paid will pay taxes. Companies will pay taxes. Nigeria gets more revenue. Can invest in services, etc. But you could also say, well, however, they don't only bring benefits. Some of the disadvantages are that most of the money doesn't necessarily stay in Nigeria. That often, in order to attract transnational corporations, governments have to provide tax breaks, etc. So they can sometimes be exploited by TNCs. The conditions of these jobs are not necessarily very good either. So you can talk about the negatives here, okay, as your criticism, and then the evaluation. Do you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And then in the second paragraph, you'd say, well, actually, transnational TNCs bring advantages to the home country. So in the case of Shell Oil, it's an Anglo-Dutch company. Therefore, it brings massive benefits to the UK and Netherlands, because when you go buy your petrol in at a petrol station, fill up your car, that money does not get sent to Nigeria. It gets sent to Shell, and Shell's not based in Nigeria. So ultimately, the money goes back to high-income countries. Okay, explain why that is, how that benefits the host country, and why that might disadvantage a host goes back to home country, and why that disadvantages Nigeria. And then say, well, however, it can also bring negatives to a home country. So for instance, in a weird way, in investing in an NEE, if anything, is allowing the NEE to grow its superpower status in essence, and therefore increase the level of competition for high income countries. Okay, it's also jobs that are provided in low income NEE countries, not in high income countries. By having TNCs in host countries, you're increasing the risk of a deindustrialization in high income countries. You can talk about the negatives there and say, overall, do you think the benefit more or less? Okay, that's how I'd plan your 9-mark question for this section.